I've got 99 problems and tackling my TBR is all of them. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Abby. If you're new here, I'm a lifestyle content creator here on YouTube. I'm a full-time CPA, but I love uploading weekly vlogs for you guys, doing some bookish content here and there, dabbling in beauty and fashion stuff as well. I kind of just do a little bit of everything. As an avid reader for most of my life and someone who loves to escape their reality, I really have a special place in my heart for bookish content. And it's been way too long since I've done a bookish related video, so I'm very sorry for that because I feel like I went into this year promising a lot more of it, and while I have posted a lot more of it in 2025 so far compared to other years, I haven't posted a lot of it recently. If the lighting switches up throughout this video, I am filming in natural light, and typically these videos I normally have like artificial lighting set up because in our old home I had no natural light at all, and now we have some. I didn't want to set up any artificial lighting for this video. This is the first sit down video I'm filming in our new home. Just testing the waters. I just kind of set up a little bit of a background for you guys because I don't really know where my filming space will be. Ideally in our little sitting room library area that we have. That will be where I film my sit down videos in the future. But unfortunately that is the last room that we are prioritizing when it comes to furnishing and finishing out this home. So it's gonna be a while before you see videos in that room probably. So enjoy this little background I threw together for today. I know the cubes are giving college dorm. Someone commented that on one of my recent videos and just saying like to upgrade this. And I totally agree. It's going to go away. I'm gonna put a different shelf here, but we just haven't done it yet. Enough yapping though. I'm really excited to be filming today's video. I haven't really seen anyone specifically do this video before, but just a fun little twist on a TBR video. I wanted to share my high priority TBR for 2025 with you all for the rest of the year at least. I guess this video technically has been done and does get done by people typically at the start of a new year, but now that we're halfway through the year, I'm kind of reassessing my TBR, and I went through my TBR all the way to the beginning on my Fable, which you should follow me if you aren't, and I'll have it linked down below. I'm also on Goodreads, but I'm not as active on Goodreads because I'm a Fable girly now. But I went through that long TBR. I thought about all the series that I've started and haven't finished, and series that I want to start, and really just prioritized the books that I really want to read through the rest of the year. I think this will be really helpful for me if I get in a reading rut, or if I want some inspiration for what to pick for my TBR for the month. I can just pull from it since it is a compilation of everything that I do truly want to read this year. The things that I'm most excited to read and most eager to get to. I am a big mood reader, so a lot of these things are going to be sort of seasonal situations. For example, if it's like a summer romance type of book, if I don't get to it this summer, it's probably not gonna happen. But we're gonna do the best we can. Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed and turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload, and follow me on my social media link down below so you can keep up with me in real time over there. And as you watch this video, I want you to comment which books I should prioritize most if you've read them, or if there's just one that you read that I mentioned that you really loved a lot, let me know in the comments. That will probably help me to read them more quickly. I have things divided into broader genres to help break this video down into sections. So let's go ahead and get started. Since we're getting into summer, I thought we could start off with romance. We've got quite a bit on here. There's some series that I've been dying to start, which I know will probably take me forever to finish, knowing myself, but I think if I can at least get them started, I'll be happy. There's also just some authors on here who I know that I really love, and I haven't read all of their work, so I would really love to read all of their books. So that also kind of inspired this list, was thinking of the authors that I love most and the books of theirs that I haven't read yet. Starting off with the Magnolia Park series by Jessa Hastings. I had heard about these books for so long, and I have friends who read them years ago and told me to check them out and that they really loved them. But I feel like when this series initially had its rounds on social media, I saw a lot of polarizing stuff about the books. It seemed like people really passionately hated it or really passionately loved it, and I think that kept me from diving into it because I was just like, okay, what if I don't like it? And I didn't want to waste my time with it. However, my friend Lottie here on YouTube, she loves the series, and when I heard her talking about how much she loved it in a video at one point, I was like, okay, I feel like we read a lot of the same books and we're both big mood readers, and I've read and loved a lot of the same books that she has. I feel like if she loved it, surely I will too. I mentioned in a vlog a while ago that I had this crazy thought where I was like, I need the linen foiled special editions of Magnolia Parks, like I need air. And I have not even read the books, but the covers are just that gorgeous that I really want them that badly when I haven't even read the books, which is saying a lot. So if I end up loving these books, you bet your bottom dollar I'm gonna be getting my hands on those special editions. This is a 5-book series, I believe. It starts with Magnolia Parks, Daisy Hates, Long Way Home, Great Undoing, and Into the Dark. I've heard the series described as being really similar to Gossip Girl in book form. Part of me wishes I would have read the series earlier because I just feel like I don't have as high of a tolerance for a lot of the drama and toxicity and like miscommunication that typically comes with these types of books, but I know nothing about them, so maybe it will be more tolerable for me. I think that that's why a lot of people love these books. I've also just heard really great things about Jessa Hastings' writing and her writing style, and I'm really excited to dive into this universe. I finished One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune this morning, and I am debating starting this series next, like basically right now, but I'm also torn between finishing out another romance series before I dive into this one. Next up, we have The Conditions of Will, also by Jessa Hastings. This is a new release from Jessa Hastings, and it's not tied to the Magnolia Parks universe, but I've heard really incredible things about it. And I've actually seen some people say that it's a really great introduction to Jessa Hastings' writing style. So part of me is wondering if I should start with The Conditions of Will and then dive into Magnolia Parks, or if I should just jump into Magnolia Parks and then read Conditions of Will. And this is about Georgia, who lives in London. She's a professional lie detector, and she's been estranged from her wealthy and closed-minded family who lives in South Carolina for a really long time. She has a gay alcoholic brother, and she returns to the States for her father's funeral after an unexpected death, which this isn't a spoiler, it's literally in the synopsis of the book. And she becomes really drawn to her brother's AA sponsor. There's a surprise in their father's will, and her job as a professional lie detector really becomes important as they start to unravel her dad's past. The book seems like it explores a lot of heavier themes while also having a subplot of romance. I've seen so many reviews about this book and just saying people who have witnessed or been a part of any kind of religious trauma, especially in the South, would really resonate with some things in this book. And as someone who is a Christian but absolutely understands and has experienced some of that in their life, that makes this book really intriguing for me. Now we have Wild and Wrangled, which is the fourth and final book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. I love this series, and I recently saw Eden talk about how she really did not like Done and Dusted, which broke my heart. I loved Done and Dusted, and I really feel like all of Lila's books have gotten stronger with each one she's released. I'm really excited to read this fourth book in the series though. The covers of these books are really what drew me in the first place, and they have become my favorites over the last few years as a palette cleanser, especially gearing into summer and having something light to read. All of the books are around like 320 pages, which is just the perfect length for a romance to me, and I really love the characters that she creates and how real and relatable they are. The setting of Rebel Blue Ranch is super picturesque, and I really just feel like I'm plucked out of my world and dropped right in the middle of the ranch every time I'm reading her books. And she writes some very hot men. The only thing I don't like is that the male protagonists often give the love interest a pet name in each of the books. It can feel a little overused at times. However, I will say in Swift and Saddled, which I believe was the most recent one that was released before Wild and Wrangled, the third book, pet name is just saying Teddy Baby, which Teddy is the name of the female protagonist, and that was my favorite pet name, and I actually really loved it, and I didn't think it was overused in that book. I'm really excited to wrap up reading this series, and not that I want to see it go because it's going to be bittersweet, but I am really excited to read this final book. Small town western ranch romance vibes. Second Chance Romance, and Second Chance Romance is one of my favorite tropes, if not my favorite. It's about Camille, who we have met in previous books, and she's very type A, has a plan for her life, is going to get married to help better her daughter's future, and her own groom does not show up at her wedding, which obviously turns her whole world upside down. So she doesn't have a place to live, but there's a house that she's always loved in Meadowlark that is available for rent, so she can jump at that opportunity. However, the neighbor of that home is Dusty, and they were each other's first everything. So her moving in next door obviously presents the question of, are they going to get back together or not? So they're trying to rekindle their friendship while also recognizing that they are just very comfortable with each other naturally from being each other's first. So it's 10 years down the line, and you're getting to experience the Second Chance Romance. Wild and Wrangled is one of the books that I'm considering reading before I start Magnolia Parks, because I do want to finish that series out, and it did just come out, so I do want to read it while everyone's excited about it and everything. And going off of that, another book I'd really like to read before starting Magnolia Parks maybe is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I have the special edition copy sitting right here behind me. I fell in love with this copy and how stunning it was, and my mom got it for me for Christmas, and I haven't read it yet, which I think it's crazy that I have not read Beach Read. I've read all of Emily Henry's other books, so it's crazy to me that I haven't read Beach Read yet. I don't know why I've been putting it off. I just think I was excited to read her new releases as they were coming out the last few years and prioritize those instead. And I know so many people love Beach Read. This is about a romance writer who actually does not believe in love, and a literary writer who are both in creative and writing ruts, and they decide to join together over the summer. They have nothing in common, but they're living in these neighborhood beach houses and decide to write things that they're not really comfortable writing to help themselves get out of their ruts. So she's planning on writing the next great American novel, and he's planning on writing something happy. I'm excited to read this because of the great things I've heard about it, and also because I feel like it'll be a really good summer read. Anytime a character in a book is an author or an editor, journalist, or something along those lines as their profession, I automatically give the book bonus points because I don't know what it is. I just love reading about people who live that life just because I think it's something that was like a childhood dream of mine, to be a journalist or to be an author or something like that. So I think that I especially love it when I see it in books because it's kind of just like a fantasy for me to escape to a reality in which I'm not living it, but someone else is living that lifestyle. We have the Boys Atonement series, which has been getting so much attention on TikTok lately, and I know this is not like a new series by any means. This is a series by Chloe Wall. This takes place at Tobin College and follows Johnny, who plays lacrosse and wants to save this broken girl who has lived a really difficult life. She arrives at the college halfway through the school year looking for a fresh start, and she meets Johnny on her first day, and then they fall into a really complicated friendship. They have a lot of chemistry, but also both have a lot of baggage and secrets and a lot to risk in being with one another. Like, this one's gonna read similarly and have a similar feel to the Magnolia Park series because it seems like there's just like a lot of drama and toxicity in it. I believe there's 6 books in this series out right now. I can't tell from what Goodreads is telling me, and this is definitely a longer book because the first book, Binding 13, is 626 pages, which is so long for a romance. So I don't know if I'll be getting to that one this summer. That might be something I read like in the fall, but it does feel like kind of a fall book because that's when you start college, so I feel like that could be a good time to start reading it. And then we have Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my like auto-buy authors when she has new releases. She's one of the authors that got me back into reading when I was in grad school. Her books were actually the first like literary fiction / romance books that I started reading when I did start reading again in 2019, 2020. I read Malibu Rising by her first and I absolutely adored it, and then read all of her other books besides Maybe in Another Life and After I Do by her, which are both on this list. Maybe in Another Life has alternating chapters, and it's about a girl who has no idea what she wants to do with her life, but she runs into an old flame, and the decision she makes completely alters the course of her life. She's had a bunch of different meaningless jobs and has lived in 6 different cities since she finished college, but moves back to her hometown of LA and lives in her best friend's guest room. She goes out to the bar, runs into her ex-boyfriend when she's there, and he asks while they're there if she wants him to take her home, and whether she leaves and goes with her roommate and friend, and whether she goes with him completely alters her life. So you're reading through a parallel universe, which is just like a really cool plot setup, and you're just reading as these 2 parallel universes run their course and find out the consequences of both of the decisions being made and the end results of them, which I just think is really interesting. I really love TJR's writing. She is a phenomenal author in my opinion, and writes really amazing characters, always has really great descriptive language, really knows how to pack a punch with her writing in terms of evoking emotion. Going off of that, another author who I really, really love, and I have 2 books I have not read by her that I really want to read so I can have read all of her work, is Annabelle Monaghan. If y'all remember, back in 2023, I read Just for the Summer by her, and it was her debut novel, and I was head over heels obsessed with it, which I do know is a little bit of an unpopular opinion. I know some people just really didn't care for the book very much. It's very similar to Every Summer After in my opinion. It has the alternating timeline, and I believe that one was alternating POV as well. It's a second chance romance, but it takes place at the beach, and anything that takes place at the beach has a very special place in my heart. Someone who grew up living really close to the beach, I really have a special place in my heart when the beach is a setting and when the beach plays a large part in the nostalgic elements. It came out with Summer Romance last year, which I have not read and really want to read, and I also want to read It's a Love Story, which comes out very soon. And this is about Allie, who has lost her mom, and she is a divorcee, professional organizer for a living, whose life is ironically a chaotic mess. And she meets Ethan by her dog peeing on him, which I just think is funny. I actually met my husband through my dog like running up to him when I was taking her on a walk one evening when I got home from my brother's birthday party in college, so I thought that was funny. Granted, my dog did not pee on Griffin. Oh, I'm filming this on May 25th, and It's a Love Story literally comes out in 2 days on May 27th, so that one comes out really soon. So I would also like to probably prioritize reading these this summer so I can have read all of her work. This is also a second chance romance, which I just believe she writes so well. This is about a former child star who is now a studio executive and tells a lie to get her first project, and she basically claims that she can get a song from this pop star who was her first kiss for the movie she's working on. She has to enlist the help of Dan, who's a cinematographer and her former crush in order to do so. This one sounds like it has a really unique plot, and I really love how Annabelle has like some very great classics like Just for the Summer, but then she also has really unique books like Nora Goes Off Script, and now It's a Love Story that really explore very unique plots, still are a great easy summer romance. And then we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I think this one could also technically be in the literary fiction category from the things I've heard about it, but obviously I want to read this. This was a new release in April. I've heard this book is very similar to Daisy Jones and the Six and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I loved both of those books. I definitely loved Seven Husbands a lot more though. I think I will enjoy this book though. It's about two authors who are competing to tell the story of a woman who has lots of crazy life events who have happened to her as a daughter of one of the most storied and scandalous families of the 20th century. So there's a 1-month trial period where both of these authors come to interview her and ask her questions and are competing for the chance to tell this woman's story. And I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit of a rivals to lovers situation. And then we have the Griffith Brothers series, which is by Maggie Gates, and it starts with Dust Storm. I've had this on my TBR for so long. This is about Cassandra Parker, who is exiled from New York, stranded on a cattle ranch, and desperate to salvage what was left of her career, living with a single dad and his children, rather than the high-rise and city life that she was used to. And she's doing it all in an effort to save her job. This is a cowboy western romance, but I love a single dad romance sometimes. I think they hit a little bit different when it's a western romance, in my opinion. I want to say I saw Carter Sullivan read these recently and really enjoyed them. There's 2 other books in the series, Downpour and Fireline. So that's another western romance series that I can pick up since I will be wrapping up the Rebel Blue Branch series, and I've already read all of the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. Going off of that, I really want to read the Rose Hill series by Elsie Silver. These are also just really good, easy, feel-good, beach read, summer read kind of books. Last year I binged most of the Chestnut Spring series back to back, and I found that I was really enjoying them, but then I ended up burning out pretty bad in the last book and was just like, okay, this was way too much. So I think I need to spread these out a little bit. This is about Ford Grant, who has been labeled as the world's hottest billionaire, and he really just wants to escape the limelight and open a recording studio in the small town called Rose Hill. But he runs into a girl who claims that he is her biological dad. And then there's Rosie, who has just returned to Rose Hill after living in the city and is his best friend's sister. So we have the older brother's best friend kind of romance. We also have the single dad trope. There's a lot of tropes going on here. There are 4 books in this series. It's Wild Eyes After Wild Love, I believe, and then Wild Side and Wild Card. Next, we have A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. I love the synopsis of this because it says this is not your typical love story. It's a story of almost and could have beens, of friendship that teeters on the edge of something more, of passion so intoxicating it burns. I love books like this. It reminds me of Talking at Night, and actually when I read Talking at Night is one of my all-time favorite books. If fantasy series didn't exist, it would probably be my favorite book. But then I also read One Day, and I had been DMing with Carter Sullivan about those books and just like how much I love that kind of style of romance where it's just like kind of tragic. And she had mentioned loving A Love Letter to Whiskey when we were talking about all of that, and I put it on my TBR then, and I haven't really seen much about it because I do know it is an older book, but I do really want to read it, especially if it is a soul-crushing romance, because I love getting my soul crush in a romance. But it follows a couple over a decade of a lot of mischances, mistakes, tension, and a really undeniable connection. Synopsis says sometimes love isn't about finding the right person, it's about the moment when everything aligns. But what if that moment never comes? Really excited to read that one, and it has really great reviews. Next we have A Happier Life by Christy Woodson Harvey. If you followed me last year, I did not shut up about wanting to read this book so badly during the summer, and then I never even read it. I was just really obsessed with the cover, honestly, but my local bookstore didn't have it in stock like all of last summer. I need to just put it on hold on my Libby or something, but honestly I would like to have the physical copy because it is really stunning in person. This book also has really great reviews. It's about Keaton, who is really wanting a fresh start, and her mom needs someone to put her childhood home in North Carolina up on the market. But Keaton didn't even know this home existed, so she jumps at this opportunity and visits this house and ends up discovering so many things about her life and family that she didn't know about, such as grandparents she didn't know existed, and she gets to know the next door neighbor and his son. But then it also follows Bex, which happens in the past. She's built a reputation for herself as the best hostess that North Carolina has ever seen, and faces a really big problem during the summer and has to make a decision that she never wanted to make. And basically I think we're following both of these women and their time living in this house, which has protected the secrets, hopes, and dreams of the women in their family for generations, which is what the synopsis says. I just think it sounds really intriguing, kind of mysterious, but also a good summer read. Now moving into lit fic, which is one of my favorite genres, probably my favorite genre actually to read. Even though I am a bit of a mood reader, lit fic is something that I can read any time of year and really enjoy it, and I always feel the strongest emotional and lasting impact from lit fic, so that's why I love it so much. First up is Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. I actually almost picked this for book club this past month. This takes place in Berkeley in 2000 at a college campus and follows Percy, who has no musical talent at all but has a lot of strong opinions about music, and then Joe, who is sitting next to her at a campus bar on the night they meet, who is a songwriter. Joe asks Percy for some feedback on one of his songs, and they end up really hitting it off and have a partnership that will carry over a couple of years, but is potentially holding Percy back from finding her own path and her own voice, and a lot of new passions for them both. I love music. I'm somebody who has always believed music is a love language in a way, and I always just get really excited when people love the same music I do, and it was honestly one of the things that created so many of my friendships in high school. Truly, so many of them got stronger through and bonded because of having a common ground in the music we listen to. So it's always been something that has a lot of meaning to me. That's also because of the nostalgic factor it has. That makes me really excited to read this book because I feel like obviously music's gonna play such a large part in it. I love this in the synopsis, and this is something that like really reeled me into wanting to read it. It says, Deep Cuts examines the nature of talent, obsession, belonging, and above all, our need to be heard. I really liked that. Next up is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. I have been seeing so much good stuff about this, but it's been on the DL. Like, I've seen a few TikToks here and there of people saying it's a really good book. I first saw it on Sarah Caroli's video. It sounds like it has a very original plot and also just very intriguing, and another book that has a little bit of a mystery aspect to it. It's about Beth and her husband Frank, who are happily married, who have a dark past that they want to keep buried. Beth's brother-in-law shoots a dog going after their sheep, and that gunshot totally changes their life because the dog belonged to Gabriel, which is the man who Beth loved when she was a teenager. Gabriel has returned to this village with his young son, and the young son reminds Beth of her own son who she tragically lost in an accident. So Beth ends up circulating back into great Gabriel's life, which obviously sounds like it gets messy. Beth has to end up making a choice about the woman she once was and the woman she wants to become. I feel like this one's going to read really similarly to God of the Woods because it's described as being a sweeping love story with the pace and twist of a thriller. I feel like God of the Woods had the same pace and twist of a thriller, even though it wasn't really a love story. I feel like this one, the subplot of the love story will be a lot stronger. Next we have Margot's Got Money Troubles by Ruthie Thorpe. I've heard great things about this book. It's actually being turned into an Apple TV series as well. This is about Margot, who knows she's gonna have to make a life for herself and enrolls at her junior college and has a brief affair with her English professor and winds up pregnant, which is not a spoiler. So she ends up unemployed, on the verge of eviction, and has a baby, and ends up deciding to dabble in OnlyFans as an experiment, and ends up finding herself in a position of being successful and having internet fame she thinks could be the answer to all of her problems. But of course, having internet fame and success comes with a price. I think this will be really interesting and really explore that whole world of internet fame and whether it's worth the price you have to pay in order to have that successful life that is dependent on appealing to people online. Next is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. I've heard a lot of mixed things about this book. It's about three estranged siblings who are from New York, and they lost one of their sisters. All three sisters live very, very different lives and have different lifestyles. And a year after the death of their fourth sister, Nikki, they are each navigating their lives and the grief of losing their youngest sister in different ways, are returning to New York to try and stop the sale of the apartment that they grew up in. Something that really intrigued me from the synopsis of this book is the last line where it says they realize the greatest secrets they've been keeping might not have been from each other, but from themselves. I love books like that really end up having a lot of self-discovery in them, and it seems like this book has a lot of that. Next is Dream State by Eric Puchner. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's about Cece, who is engaged and goes to her future in-laws' lake house in Montana early before her wedding. She's supposed to be getting married to Charlie, who is a young doctor. Charlie and Cece are having Charlie's best friend Garrett from college officiate their wedding. Him and Charlie had some sort of tragedy they experienced in their lives when they were younger, and Cece feels like he is the worst person that could be officiating their wedding. And once Cece and Garrett meet, Cece starts to realize Garrett's maybe not as bad as she thought he was, and Garrett starts to feel human again after meeting Cece. She has to decide between this life that she's always dreamed of, marrying Charlie, or life she's never imagined, which I am guessing is with Garrett. The story spans 50 years, and the decisions that were made at this lake house end up having repercussions that carry into the lives of their children, so we get to see how the decisions that were made then impact the lives of the children. And overall, the book is exploring what it means to live with our mistakes, both the ones that we've made and then the ones lands that we inherit. The setting of this one will be really beautiful with it taking place in Montana. And then we have Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. I believe I saw this one from a Goodreads choice list or something, or like books that people were looking forward to reading. Some kind of post that they posted on Instagram. That's how I found it. I haven't seen anyone talk about it yet, but it has great reviews so far, and it's about a family who's on a remote island and a woman washes ashore, but the family is a caretaker of this small island that is off the shore of Antarctica. This family becomes the final inhabitants of this island. So they've been living in isolation because of the sea levels rising and being the only ones living there. And this really bad storm happens, and this is when a mysterious woman washes ashore. The family nurses the woman back to life, and she ends up binding the family back together after they have been struggling with the isolation that they've been experiencing. The woman is not telling the full truth of her life and how she ended up washing up ashore. Ultimately, secrets end up being discovered. It ends up becoming a situation of whether or not everyone can trust one another. This book sounds so fascinating, and the setting seems so unique with it being off the coast of Antarctica. I think it will be so fascinating to read about. I love a good mystery novel. Next up is Good Material by Dolly Alderton. I have not read any of her books, but one of my close friends really loves her writing and loves her books. This is about Jen and Andy, who once loved one another. Andy's pursuing a stand-up career and feels like everyone else has kind of moved on and progressed in life while he hasn't, and while he's dealing with this heartbreak, he fixates on the idea of being able to get Jen to love him again. I believe this book has 2 separate endings. I think makes for a really exciting read for reading about a love story. I love the lit fic books that are about love stories rather than being like a romance novel, if you know what I mean. For example, Talking at Night. Next is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This book had so much hype when it came out, and I feel like this book is going to give similar vibes to Carrie Soto Is Back, which is one of my all-time favorite books as well, because it is about these elite figure skaters. There's Katarina, who has always known she was meant to be an elite Olympic figure skater. Meets Heath, who is a lonely kid who is stuck in the foster care system, and they form a duo on the ice and really use each other to escape their own lives. Something happens at their Olympic Games, and they are never the same afterwards, and it brings their duo to an end. There are tons of rumors of what happened, and a decade goes by of silence, and then Katarina finally decides to come out, and the truth ends up being more shocking than some of the rumors ever were. I feel like this one's going to be such a page turner. Next is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, which is obviously an American classic. I really want to read this book because of the fig tree analogy that is so popular, and I feel like haunts the brains of so many of us 20-something-year-olds who don't know what we want to do with our life. And I first saw the analogy when I was a teenager on Tumblr, and it resonated with me then, but I didn't really realize the weight and depth of how far that resonation could go until I became a 20-something-year-old, literally having no idea what I wanted to do with my life and just feeling decision paralysis when it comes to taking steps and taking action and making decisions for my life. Next up, we have 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand, and I feel like I could have put this in the romance category, but I personally feel like Ellen Hildebrand's books, or at least the one I've read so far from her, reads more like lit fic / historical fiction, depending on the book you're reading. I read Summer of 69 by her in 2022. Absolutely loved it. She writes really, really incredible characters. This book is about a secret love affair that has lasted decades. It only happens over one weekend every year, and explores how this affair truly complicates their lives and the lives of the people they love. It seems like a forbidden romance trope from what I can understand. If you've read any of Ellen Hildebrand's books, let me know which one of yours is her favorite, because I've only read Summer of 69 and I really, really loved it. I just don't know why I haven't reached for any of her other books over the last couple of summers, because I did really enjoy Summer of 69, and it's one of the most like memorable books I've read. I really remember the characters really well and the plot and the setting, so it's one of those books that really stuck with me. And then we have Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Beartown is actually a trilogy, I believe. I do want to save this one for the winter probably, because I wanted to get to it this past winter and never did, and I know Lottie read it this past winter and absolutely loved it, and I remember her saying that it was the perfect winter read. So I won't be reading it for a while, but it's definitely on my list to read this year because I have heard so many wonderful things about it. It follows these boys who are on the hockey team of this small town, and the hockey team is sort of what makes this small town famous, but something tragic happens, and then it follows the lives of the hockey team and the consequences they face from what happened. I honestly don't think I've heard a single bad thing about the book though. Next we have The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. I do have the physical copy of this, and I'm sorry for the books that I do have a physical copy of. I haven't been showing them just because they are still packed right now in a box. This is about Cassie Andrews, who is a bookseller living in New York City, and one of her favorite customers gives her a book as a gift. The book has a ton of strange drawings and writing, which is giving word marks. If you know, you know. And in the book, there's a note to Cassie saying that the book is the Book of Doors, and Cassie ends up discovering that this book holds a lot of power, and it is a very coveted book, which becomes a dangerous situation situation for Cassie. And the only person that can help her is Drummond Fox, who is a man with his own secret library and fighting his own demons. This book sounds so good to me, and once again, it's a situation where it's a book about books, which is my favorite. And the physical copy I have of this book is absolutely stunning. It has deckled edged pages, which I personally really love. I know not everyone loves them. It's a really beautiful cover. This is like a magical realism type of book that I really would love to read in the fall, ideally. I feel like it's gonna have a really similar feel to Divine Rivals. I don't know why, that's just the vibe I'm getting, but I'm really excited to read it. I bought it last year with plans of reading it this fall, winter, and then never read it. So I'm really excited to read it. And it's just a book I stumbled upon in Blue Willow Books, which is my favorite bookstore here in Houston. Last but not least, in Litfic, we have The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin, who is the author of Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, which I have not read that book, and I honestly don't think I'm going to, just because I've heard very mixed things on it, or at least it's not a book I'm gonna prioritize on my TBR. However, I've heard The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry is so good, and I've also heard that it makes for a great book club pick. So this might be one I could save for the next time I host book club, which is probably going to be in another 6 or 7 months, which will be the end of the year, and I feel like it would be a very cozy read, so I might save it for when I host book club. And this is about AJ Fikry, whose wife has died, and he owns a bookstore, and it is just not doing well, and his prized possession, which is a rare collection of Edgar Allan Poe poems, has been stolen, so everything is just not going well for him. He starts isolating himself from everyone as a result, but there's this police officer who has always had a really soft spot for him. One day, a mysterious package arrives at his bookstore when he's in the midst of losing hope, and this package gives him the opportunity to start over. Everyone starts to notice that he's changing, and this book really just explores his transformation and taking second chances on yourself and your life. The synopsis says it's an irresistible affirmation of why we read and why we love, which sounds so wholesome. Going into historical fiction, I have a couple books on here that I am really determined to read this year that I've been wanting to read for a long time. First up is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I've only read 2 books by Kristen Hanna. I read The Nightingale and I read Firefly Lane, and absolutely adored them both. I have heard that The Great Alone is one of her best and saddest, so I really need to be in the mood and in a place to receive that much sadness when I choose to read it. But Kristen Hanna is the queen of historical fiction. This takes place in Alaska in 1974, and it follows Ernst, who is a prisoner of war who recently came home from the Vietnam War. He comes back a very changed man and can't keep a job. Decides on a whim to move his family north to Alaska and totally live off the grid. Lenny is a 13-year-old, and she's experiencing coming of age in a very tumultuous time and is having to live in the consequences of her parents uprooting and taking their life to Alaska in the middle of nowhere. Family is no longer doing well as Ernst really starts to deteriorate in his mental space. I've never read a book that is based in Alaska, so I think that's really intriguing, and I really always loved the women and how strong of women Kristen Hanna writes in her novels. I've always found them to be very inspiring and memorable. Next up is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and one of my close friends who I worked with at my previous job and who's also in my book club read it not too long ago, and she texted me and she was like, "Abby, if you've not read Song of Achilles, you absolutely must," and told me she was sobbing at the end of it. This is about Achilles, who is the best of all the Greeks, Patroclus, who is a very awkward young prince who is exiled from his home. The two of them are brought together by chance and form an inseparable bond, even though it's risky for them to do so because they face the god's wrath. All the different heroes of Greece, though, are called lay siege to Troy in the name of Helen of Sparta, who has been kidnapped. Achilles joins their cause. Patroclus also follows out of an act of love and fear for his friend, but they will be tested and face a terrible sacrifice. I think this book sounds so fascinating. I think this book is so intriguing because it's been categorized so many different ways. I see it categorized as fantasy, obviously mythology, romance, historical fiction. I categorized it as historical fiction in my head, but I'm really looking forward to reading it, and it's been on my TBR for a very long time. Last but not least in this category is Strangers in Time by David Baldacci. This one is set in London in 1944, and it's about the bereaved book owner and 2 teenagers who are traumatized after the Second World War. There's 14-year-old Charlie, who has no parents and genuinely is just stealing what he needs in order to make it and live day to day, and he can't get a job, takes things day by day until he's old enough to enlist and fight the Germans. And then there's 15-year-old Molly, who has just returned to London and doesn't recognize a thing. She comes home to discover that both of her parents are gone. Charlie and Molly, though, unexpectedly find an ally in Oliver, who is the owner of the bookstore called The Bookkeep and is mourning the loss of his wife. Not gonna lie, the bookstore aspect of this book is really what drew me in the synopsis, but also I love a good story of found family, and I think this one will be particularly interesting since it's following these 3 characters and their post-war lives, but also also as the war continues. So they've already experienced tragedy when you meet them, I feel like, but then you're also seeing how they carry on and continue to live through all these tragedies with all of that baggage, going through it a second time. Now moving into fantasy, and oh my gosh, there's a lot, but I'm really just gonna stick to the basics here because I could probably stay here for forever. First up is the Fourth Wing series by Rebecca Yarros, and I want to start by saying I am kind of interested in doing a series on YouTube of reading series that I've been putting off, or just like reading really popular series that I haven't gotten to, because there are so many series that I feel like everyone has read except for me, Fourth Wing being one of them and Magnolia Parks being another. But I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in. I feel like it's very niche to create those kind of videos, so I don't really know if it would be my best use of time. Also because it takes me literally forever to read series, since I typically don't like read all of them in one sitting and all back to back, and I typically space things out, which is a trait I do hate about myself. I need to be better about just like reading series all the way through. I did read The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros and absolutely loved that book. It was so good and so original, and it was more of a historical fiction with romance, and I absolutely loved it. It had one of the most crazy plot twists I've ever read in my life, honestly, and I found that book to be very captivating and memorable. So I know she's a good writer, but it absolutely blows my mind that she has wrote such a successful and popular fantasy series while also having this background of writing this incredible historical fiction novel. Like, the fact that she's done both is just mind-blowing to me. Not saying I was doubting her and didn't think she could do it, I just think it's very respectable that she's been able to do both so successfully. This follows Violet and Xaden, who are part of a college for dragon riders, but Violet is a very small and fragile 20-year-old who lives a very quiet life. Dragons don't really bond to fragile humans like herself. And then there's Xaden, who's a powerful and ruthless wing leader. There's a war brewing outside of their college. Death toll continues to rise, so there's sort of an impending doom there. And Violet begins to suspect that people in this war college are hiding secrets, and there's a lot of romance in it as well. And while I'm looking forward to reading it, I am a little nervous that it's not going to live up to the hype, because it's one of those situations where I've been avoiding reading the series because I've been afraid it wouldn't live up to the hype. I'm somebody who does that with things that get a lot of attention and a lot of hype. I tend to avoid them like the plague because of the fear of being let down. I'm that way with music, with movies, with books, TV shows. I will literally avoid them rather than trying them out for myself because I don't want to waste my time and be let down. And I need to just stop thinking that way because it keeps me from reading and watching and listening to so many incredible things. Next we have the Hunger Games series, which I actually have never read, which I feel like is crazy to say out loud. I never got into them when I was a teenager, and I think it's just because the age I was when they were really popular was kind of at this like in between when I wasn't really reading as much of like the young adult books. I just don't think I was reading much when it came out. Like, I read a lot when I was in elementary school and early middle school, but late middle school and early high school I did not read a lot because I really didn't like reading as much during that time because I was having to read during the summer and do summer reading in middle school and then I think my first 2 years of high school, and I hated being forced to read something over the summer, especially because it was really boring books like Around the World in 80 Days. Like, I had to read that going into 7th grade and it was the worst experience. I hated it. So I think that kind of turned me off from reading. But then once I was in high school, after I had been in high school for like a year, I picked up the Divergent series, absolutely ate it up, devoured it, loved it. And then I had read Twilight in early middle school. So there was like this gray area in between where I didn't really read from like 7th grade to in between 9th and 10th grade. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that's when the Hunger Games was really popular. So I just never picked it up. And that's obviously another iconic series that I just haven't read. And typically I would not want to read a book series if I had already seen the movies, but I have only seen the first movie of the series and I saw it literally forever ago and I don't really recall much of it, so I think I would be fine reading the series. So I would like to go back. And then we have Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. This has been all over my YouTube and TikTok For You page. I feel like everyone's been talking about it. This is a slow burn romantasy from how I've seen it described, which sounds so delicious, but I will probably save this for the fall, honestly. But it's about a forgotten princess who becomes a warrior, and I love a storyline like that. And these gods sent monsters to 5 different kingdoms to remind the mortals of their subservience to them. And the princess has to cross treacherous lands with a warrior who she does not get along with, and she's facing a lot of pressure to be a lot of different things from a lot of different people, and she starts to explore what if she made her own rules and didn't be what everyone else wanted her to be. I feel like the princess as our protagonist in this book is going to be inspiring, and I'm looking forward to that because I feel like I'm going to need some of that once I finish the Throne of Glass series, because I am reading the last book right now, Kingdom of Ash, from that series, and I didn't include it on this list since I'm already currently reading Kingdom of Ash, but I feel like I'm really going to miss having such a strong heroine since I've been in the Throne of Glass world for literally like a year and a half now, I think. So I feel like this will be a nice world to dive into with a similar female protagonist. Next we have Babel by R.F. Kong. This is a dark academia that explores colonial resistance and student revolutions, and I'm somebody who loves the aesthetic of dark academia. Like, I used to follow all of these dark academia themed Tumblr accounts when I was in early college and late high school, and just really romanticized that aesthetic. So I feel like I'm really gonna love that overall vibe and feel of this book. It follows Robin in the early 19th century, who is orphaned by cholera, is brought to London by a professor, and trains for years in 3 languages. To prepare for the day, he'll enroll in Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, which is known as Babel. The tower there and the students of this university are the World Center for Translation and Magic. Robin ends up realizing, unfortunately, that serving Babel does end up betraying his homeland as a Chinese boy who was raised in Britain. And he finds himself caught between Babel, an organization dedicated to stopping imperial expansion. This has been on my TBR for too freaking long, and I really just need to get to it and read it. I've heard nothing but incredible things about this book, and it seems like it will be such a page turner. I'm really excited to read it, but it'll definitely be a fall read. Next we have The Secret History by Donna's Heart, which I also plan on reading in the fall, and has also been on my TBR for probably like 2 or 3 years at this point. And it's time to promote these 2 from the bottom of the barrel of my TBR and move them up in priority. My last 3 falls and winters have just been really consumed by either ACOTAR or the Throne of Glass series, so now that I have those 2 really chunky fantasy series basically out of the way, I'm looking into diving into some more standalone fantasy and historical fiction related books in the fall and winter. Secret History was actually Donna Tartt's debut novel, and it was written in 1992, which I actually didn't realize until recently, and I think it's very interesting that it's had such a big revival and it's been out for as long as it has been. This one also falls under the umbrella of dark academia, similar to Babel. This follows a group of eccentric students at an elite New England college who discover a way of living that is beyond the ordinary people in their lives and around them. And they end up stretching the bounds of normal morality under the influence of one of their professors and slip into evil. This synopsis is very vague, so it has me like very intrigued to know like what all really is happening in it, which makes me really want to read it even more. But I've just heard so many incredible things about it, and a lot of times I'll like see random TikToks of just like a rainy afternoon in a city or something, and I've seen people be like, oh, this is so Secret History coded, and I'm just like, wait, I want to be a part of this. Next up is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and this series was recently completed, and I believe that there are 3 books and maybe a novella if I remember correctly. I've heard that the first book though is the best in the series, or that's what I tend to hear the most when I hear people talk about it, which doesn't make me super excited to read the series because I don't love the idea of it just getting progressively worse as I continue to read it, and that doesn't necessarily make me enticed to want to read it as much. However, so many people have spoken so highly of the first book that it does make me really want to at least give it a try and see if I love it enough to continue the series. This book has the forbidden romance trope, which I do often enjoy. I've heard it being described as very similar to Hunger Games and one other series, but I can't remember what the other series is. But it follows a very powerful prince and just an ordinary girl who live in a kingdom and are fighting to survive living in this kingdom because there are tons of laws that keep them from being with one another. He spent his whole life hunting people like her, and she spent her whole life avoiding people like him, hence the forbidden romance. And next we have The Crimson Moth duology, which is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. I've had Heartless Hunter available on my Libby for what feels like forever, and I've deferred it a bajillion and 1 times at this point. I can't decide when I want to read it. I kind of want to save it for the fall to be just sort of more of like a cozy kind of fantasy read, because that's what it seems like it is, because it follows basically a witch and witch hunter, and witches in this society have recently been diminished from rulers to being outcasts after a revolution, and Rune must hide that she is a witch in order to survive. She spends her days pretending to be a socialite and spends her night rescuing those who are just like her. But one of her rescues goes wrong and she is forced to keep the witch hunters off her track. She does so by courting one of the witch hunters named Gideon. It's like another forbidden romance, which I feel like is in a lot of these fantasy books I'm wanting to read, but I do really love that trope, and I feel like this book will be a really cozy read for the fall and seems like a bit more of a true enemies to lovers. And that concludes my TBR for the remainder of 2025, kind of a mid-year check-in, if you will, to prioritize my TBR going through the rest of the year. There are some other books on here that I kind of had as honorable mentions, but I have been filming for literally like 2.5, almost 3 hours, and I have to pack to go out of town for a week, and I leave tomorrow, and it's the night before right now basically at this point, so I've got to wrap things up and I don't have time for the honorable mentions, but maybe I can share them in another video. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you made it to the end, comment the little nerd face emoji with the glasses and let me know if you've read any of these, which ones I should prioritize, but also let me know in the comments what book or series you're prioritizing reading before 2025 is over. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe if you aren't already and turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload like I said earlier, and follow me on my social media link below. I'll see you in my next video.